and welcome to Level Up Stronger. The world is continuously changing at a very rapid pace. How can we all gain the competitive edge in our industries and thrive in them? What if you knew without the shadow of a doubt that self-education and access to forward-thinking experts in your field could catapult you towards success faster than ever before? The spaces we inhabit can inspire us, protect us, define us, and connect us, so we all play a valuable role in shaping their future. We plan to take a deep dive into various industries and careers. What are the future of the industries? What are the barriers to entry? And learn from the very people who thrive in them. We will take you behind the scenes to the people, products, and processes that keep industries thriving. In this podcast, we look forward to inspire and empower everyone to take thoughtful, educated risks and apply what we've learned in our lives so we can all level up stronger.
Welcome to the Level Up Stronger podcast. In today's episode, we have the pleasure of speaking with Ed and Eddie Velasco of South Florida Coastal Electric. They're a father and son team working together in commercial and industrial electrical contracting. Ed, having developed electrical and data service expertise during his years of service in the United States Army, started South Florida Coastal Electric in 1996. Eddie, who has worked in the business in various capacities over the years, joined the team as operations manager in 2016. The company has grown to cover electrical needs ranging from demolition of existing sites to completion and final inspections at diverse locations, ranging from retail outlets and restaurants to government buildings, hospitals, and sports complexes. Some of their most notable clients include Jackson Health Systems, Design Center of the Americans, Dayton Center, Port of Miami, and even the Marlins Ballpark. South Florida Coastal Electric is based in Miami. However, they perform work throughout the state of Florida. In this episode, we'll find out more about Ed and Eddie's pathways into the electrical profession and how their skills complement each other in the operation of the family business. We'll learn how Ed's business and the services he provides have changed over the 2.5 decades since it was established and what technologies are on the horizon that will most impact the electrical trade moving forward. Welcome to the show. So to start off, Ed, I was wondering if you could tell us a little about yourself and how you got into the electrical field.
Honestly, it's something that I wanted to do as a kid. So when I joined the Army, it was a pathway to get into that point. Got some training as far as in the Army. Once I got out of active duty, I went into the apprenticeship program with the local union 349. And once I finished with that, 2 years after that, 3 years after that, it was when I opened up the business.
When you started your apprenticeship, your experience in the military definitely helped you have a head start on that.
Yes, it did. I want to add that my wife, Dania, also is an important factor. She does a lot to help the business go. So she's also an important factor in the business. My son, Eddie, has been a great addition to it, and so has she.
Okay, excellent. Dania, could you also tell us a little about yourself and your involvement and role in the company?
I started back in 2008 or 9, just helping him out because he needed help with the proposals and estimating and the payroll. And so I started off at that point just helping him with the clerical stuff. And now I'm more involved with dealing with clients and trying to bring in business and things of that nature.
Thank you. And Eddie, we'll move on to you. If you could tell us a little bit more about yourself and how you got into the electrical profession.
Obviously, being the family business and having my dad start when I was young, I was exposed to the trade very early on. I worked summers with him when I was young and in school. We'd visit the job sites, my brother and I, help him out where we could. Started learning how to read plans pretty early, a little bit about material, getting hands-on experience, even going back to when I was 14 or 15. And then got more into it during the summers as I got older, actually going out on my own and working in the field with foremans and with other electricians that we had working with us. Then I went off to school at Florida State. I got a degree in business and stayed there and got my MBA and came back to start helping run jobs hands-on in the field. Came back to a pretty big job of ours, one of our larger contracts, actually, a hotel in Dania Beach. And like you mentioned in the introduction, bringing technology into the mix and staying ahead of the game there, keeping up with what's trending in the industry. And that's more my realm as much as I can make it. And then my role has evolved to general field superintendent, managing the jobs, visiting sites on a daily basis, and then being a small business, helping out in the office as much as I can with estimating and assisting Dania with payroll, helping my dad with estimating and bids and keeping up with compliance, stuff like that. So just looking to take on more and more as I learn.
And my next question was going to be how you feel your skills complement each other, but I think you've already covered quite a bit of that in the introduction. And of course, being a small business, it's important to be able to step in many different capacities. So is there anything else any of you would like to add about how your skills complement each other or strong points that you have and where that all fits in together?
I'll start with me. With both Eddie and Dania, I am technology challenged. So they have really helped out in the expansion of the company. I'm still pretty old school when it comes to doing things, and it kind of works for me, but it doesn't really work for the time. So they both have really helped in increasing our productivity and our professionalism too.
Along those lines, how does training and education to become an electrician look different now than it did 25 years ago? So with that integration of technology and requirements of today's environment, how does that look different today than in what it did 25 years ago when you were going about your apprenticeship and training?
With the age of Google, you can pretty much Google anything right now. Back then, it was more hands-on as far as you needed the experience on the job to learn it. Now it's all, even I Google things that, okay, I'm not familiar with. I'll Google it and say, oh, okay. So it is a little bit different. And this is why the age of technology really is the way to go as far as getting ahead.
Eddie, if you could also speak to that, we have so much information available online, but at the same time, nothing can replace sometimes that hands-on experience. So is a lot of that replacement, or how do you balance that being able to get information, but the requirements of that hands-on experience, and maybe not just for you, but also the people that work with you?
Certainly from my perspective, I have the middle ground. I get to see how my dad was trained, how he expects people to be trained when they come on with us. But then I also see when we hire new employees, some of them have been to trade school, some of them have gotten education credits online, but always at the end of the day, hands-on experience wins. Somebody might have a certification or a license that may put them above others in some cases, but hands-on always is the most important. And then for myself, I get the hands-on experience from my dad. I always have a direct line to somebody that's very knowledgeable and has seen most of our field and has experienced a lot of the things that we might come across. But I Google stuff myself. I do continuing education as much as I can, take learning credits online. Like I said, I went to school for business, not so much electrical engineering or anything like that. So if there's something technical and I need to know, and maybe I don't have access to my dad at every minute, I'll Google it, or I'll call somebody that's done it hands-on. It's just a matter of what's going to be quicker for me. And always Google's right on your phone. There's a wealth of knowledge right there available to everybody.
And for those who may not be familiar, could one of you describe the process and the apprenticeship program in gaining that hands-on experience, how that works?
Unfortunately, with technology, everybody wants to skip that and be the fast-paced. So the apprenticeship programs nowadays are falling back due to technology. And it's like Eddie said, you get the most out of hands-on than you do at a classroom. It's more on the job training than a classroom environment. And that's what has changed a lot in most trades, that the hands-on supersedes book work because it is so accessible through Google or any other learning formats out there.
Can you comment at all about how the workforce looks different now than it did when you first started this? If you're seeing more diversity, I know traditionally there's been not a lot of females in the workforce in the trades and demand these days. And from what I understand, a lot of positions that aren't being filled. Have you seen that workforce changing, or how do you anticipate maybe that changing in the future to meet hiring needs?
The workforce has become more diversified. We have a lady foreman right now with us that's super qualified. And as far as Dania going out to the fields, she is very well taken as far as being out on the field. So before, it was very difficult to see ladies in trades, plumbing, electrical, mechanical, but it is more common now. I believe it's a good thing. And I'll let Dania fill in her point of view as far as what she sees out in the field.
I think women in general, they can relate more to the actual client. And I think that brings more of not only the work part of it, but it brings up a different level of relationship between us, the electrician, and the GC. And I think that women help to fill that gap of women with men and women with women. We have a couple of GCs now, actually, that are women-based companies. And I think it helps to see that they have women in the field as well that are knowledgeable about the technical part of the business. Sometimes I think women are a little taken back by the fact that there's other women on the field. But in general, they appreciate that we have that relationship that is not the norm between a client and an electrician. When there's women involved, I think that that's more of a personal relationship than it is just a client-based relationship.
And so you have found that you have been fairly well received in the work environments that you've been in and with the GCs that you have worked with.
Yeah, there's exceptions to that. But in general, I think that I've been very well received.
Do you think that has helped attract or make other women more confident who may be hesitant to enter the work field? Or do you feel like you have been able to inspire them or make people feel that it's okay and give them confidence in the workplace?
I do. And I think that when our clients, especially GCs that are women-owned GCs, find that we have women on the electrical field and on the technical side as well, like we have that electrician that she's a foreman and she's amazing. I think that just helps us get more clients. It empowers us. It really does. It's empowering to see. And I think that both the foreman that we have on staff and myself, we feed off each other. And we go out to the field thinking we can conquer all because we have each other's back.
That is very good to hear. I'm sure that's an inspiration to many people. The next question is, I guess, a little more for Ed. Going back to the time when you first started, you mentioned that you started your own business a couple years after you had started in the electrical field. What did make you decide to start your own business at the time?
Well, at the time, I was making another company money. So I said, why not make my own money or make myself a company to make myself money and have my own time as far as not depending on somebody. Been on both sides of the fields as far as being an employee and being laid off and being an owner and having to lay somebody off. Neither one of them, it doesn't feel good. So in a way, I am under my own control as far as my destiny. And that really is, at the end of the day, it's you're as an owner and as a small business with my wife and my son, we control our own destiny, per se. Last year was a rough year. We survived and we're thriving this year. So it is for a lot of people that were out in need last year with a COVID situation. We weren't doing great, but we managed to survive. And that's basically why I went into business.
The services that you provide, can you comment on how those have changed over the years to reflect the changing needs in the field?
It's a trend. A lot of it is also relationships. I've gone from concentrating on office build-outs to medical renovations to sports complex to now we're concentrating on restaurants. So it's a trend that it depends on the relationships of the contractors that we have.
So really being able to adapt the services you provide to the needs at the time.
Yeah, and honestly, luck has something to do with it too. When we did the Marlins Ballpark, it was a job thrown to us. They were looking for somebody, we got a call, and all of a sudden we have the Marlins Ballpark, a fraction of it. So there's luck in everything too.
I'll comment on that. Over the years, I think first and foremost, our scope has increased with myself joining and Dania joining. We have more eyes on the field. We can create more estimates. So really the scope of our work and how many people we can manage under our supervision has increased significantly. And then you mentioned technology. We've begun to do infrared scanning, which generates revenue for us and it creates client relationships. So we scan for infrared, we find issues that a building might want to correct. They might hire us to do those corrections, and then they might hire us again the next year to do the same service. What's becoming really popular now is building information management, building inventory management, how jobs are built out, how buildings are built and managed after the fact. That's becoming really big, and hoping to stay ahead of that trend with the programs that we use to manage construction and manage service after the fact. So trending, obviously a big part. Our scope of how many people we can manage has been a huge part of growing the business, and we look to continue to do that.
Could you explain a little more about the infrared scanning and what it can detect?
In the electrical field, there's various uses for infrared technology, but as far as the electrical field, we can use infrared, meaning thermal vision. In layman's terms, we have cameras that detect heat. And typically what we do is we're contracted to inspect electrical components in a building for heat loss or heat generation where it shouldn't be. When a system is not functioning properly electrically, electricity generates heat. When you have too much heat, you can have failures in the operation of equipment, be it a circuit breaker or a motor or the main, even so far as the main feeds to the building. And when something like that goes down, you have lost productivity for the client, you have dangerous situations, even in some cases explosions and arc hazards. So what we do and the way that we go about it is we're hired by a client to do a survey. We call it an infrared survey. They bring us in, we open up every electrical panel, inspect every breaker, every disconnect. Sometimes we'll do transformers. It's a little bit of a different test, but we can inspect it as well. And we give them a report of what we find. We say, hey, look, this is a little odd. Let us take a look at it at a different time. And in the past, we've found correctable items that could have led to power loss for an entire high rise. And we look to prevent that with this sort of diagnostic. It's becoming more and more popular. And so we're happy to have brought it in-house because we used to contract it out in the past. And it was a huge expense, but now it's a revenue generator.
For something like that, how would that change the training necessary? Do you see a difference in some of these new areas that are opening up that might affect the profile of people you look for or the training that may be required?
Certainly, you do need to be technology savvy to handle the equipment. It's very specialized equipment, very specialized review programs and report generation programs. So certainly, if we were to expand that set of our services, it would have to be somebody that could handle the technology. And as far as my training, I flew across the country to do a week-long course to be able to run the infrared camera, to be able to manipulate the software and generate a report for clients that it's easy to read, not only for their maintenance team, but can be passed on to their insurance company, and they get certain discounts for preventative maintenance, stuff like that. But the reason that it's become so profitable for us and why we've been able to expand it is because I have the field knowledge. My father has the field knowledge that we can look with the camera, which anybody can do. Anybody that can manipulate basically a fancy camera, sure, they can take a picture. But as electricians, we can diagnose just by looking at it, by looking at the photo. What we had to do in the past was we hired the infrared scanner. They would take the images, and then we would have to be next to them side by side.
I was just wondering if you could tell me how solar or maybe other sustainable forms of energy have impacted the work that you do most recently.
As far as smart technology, that is extremely prevalent in our work. We have high efficiency lighting systems that are installed now on almost every project. They save energy by selectively turning on and off lights at night during closed hours, using battery backup systems instead of connecting to the grid. So we're looking to stay ahead of that trend, and it's becoming the standard.
I was wondering what you think maybe can be done to foster greater representation and diversity in the electrical trades and ensuring that there is a workforce sufficient in the future to meet the labor demands.
I think that the college life now is not for too many people. And not that I'm downplaying that, because we went to college, but I think the technical part of it, that technical field is growing. And I think that that's going to impact the electrical business as far as more people wanting to do one of the trades. Now, when they see women joining these type of trades, gives more women the opportunity or the desire to pursue that. So I see that changing. I see more women in the field for sure, and just in general.
And speaking of seeing more women in the field, and you have all gone through it as a family, of work hours can be tricky sometimes and things come up with family responsibilities. Do you think there is a work environment that could accommodate women with family responsibilities? From your experiences in going through that, both from within the electrical field and having close relationship with somebody who works in the electrical field, how might those barriers be overcome for typical challenges that may prevent women from certain work hours or travel or things like that?
I think that I think there's more chance actually. The work schedule for a trade is easier for moms, I think. It's basically during school hours. If there's an emergency, an electrical emergency, that's few and far between as far as being called in after hours. But generally the work hours are from 7 to 3:30, and that's usually when the kids are in school. So in all fairness, it's actually easier for women to do a trade rather than to be on a 9-to-5 job where they would have to find after school care for their kids and things like that.
Well, thank you, Ed and Eddie, for sharing your time with us today. It was great to have you on the show. And thank you all for joining us on Level Up Stronger. For references to resources mentioned on this episode and to receive updates on future podcasts, check us out on social media or at levelupstronger.com. Thank you.
Thanks so much for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us on Level Up Stronger. For references to resources mentioned in this episode and to receive updates on future podcasts, check us out on social media or at levelupstronger.com. And remember, each time we take risk, educate ourselves, and apply what we've learned to our lives, we level up stronger. Each time we level up stronger, we have the opportunity to reach back and contribute to someone else's success too.